Good afternoon, AmCham members, and thank you, Sharif and Sylvia, for the warm introduction. Sylvia and Sharif told me I'd be having lunch with a couple of friends, so it's great to see that you both turned out. Seriously, I want to thank the whole AmCham team for the hard work that goes into putting an event like this together, and to the board members of AmCham for sustaining the vibrant partnership that you have with the U.S. Embassy. As you've just heard, my career has been about forging U.S. partnerships with countries and regions to expand mutually beneficial opportunities, including for U.S. business. I previously worked on economic and commercial files in a number of Mediterranean countries, including Greece, Cyprus, Israel, and Turkey, and gained in-depth understandings of how to realize opportunities and overcome challenges to boost trade, investment, and development. In Iraq, I worked with General Electric, with Hill International, with Cargill, and with others to advocate for their projects with the government in Baghdad. And as DCM in Cyprus, my team and I worked hard to grow the footprint of U.S. franchises and were in close contact with Houston-based Noble Energy as they conducted offshore seismic exploration and found gas. It's great to come full circle, 10 years later, and now see Noble playing a pivotal role in the development of Egypt's energy sector. And in both Cyprus and Greece, I worked with Exxon, and I'm delighted to report the signing just yesterday of a new contract to explore offshore here in Egypt. All of that is to say that I've long been a big proponent of the diplomatic commercial engagement and advocacy for U.S. companies. As you all know, Egypt's a dynamic country with a complex economy and unique regional challenges, but also great opportunities. And I've been working hard over the past few months since I arrived to understand the specific challenges that U.S. companies face here. I'm still learning, and I count on you to help me continue that education. With your help, I hope to become an expert advocate for your interests, because the success of U.S. business in Egypt is in America's best interest. It's good for the U.S. economy, and it's good for the U.S.-Egypt relationship. As the U.S. ambassador, I'm responsible for U.S.-Egypt relations in all their aspects: political, military, economic, trade, cultural, educational. It all comes across my desk. I could talk to you today about each of these elements, but if I did, this lunch would stretch to dinner and beyond. So let me focus on what I think you all, AmCham members, are most interested in hearing from me. What we see is the opportunities for expanding and deepening our commercial engagement in Egypt. The first and most important point is that I am and will be your advocate in Egypt. I'll be working tirelessly to create and expand business opportunities between the United States and Egypt, and working with the Egyptian government to build an environment that attracts U.S. interests, U.S. investment, and in which a strong private sector can generate jobs and deliver the economic growth that Egypt needs. U.S. government support for your work is more important than ever, given, among other things, the support that your competitors get from their governments. From the U.S. side, we'll be pressing harder for you than ever before. You can count on it. Second, the American brand is not just about U.S. foreign policy and what we do at the embassy or what we do in Washington. It's about what you all do as well. The quality products and services that you bring to the market, the jobs you create, the innovation and entrepreneurship you inculcate, the knowledge and technology you transfer, the corporate social responsibility projects you undertake, the improvements to Egypt's healthcare, transportation, education, agriculture, and infrastructure that come with your investments here. American business ingenuity and partnership is part and parcel of our overall American brand. We're in this together, and your success is our success. Third, we have a great base to build on for more commercial engagement in the years ahead, and the trend lines are already very promising, as Sharif alluded to. Let's quickly look at some of the other numbers. Egypt is the fourth largest export market for U.S. goods and services in the Middle East, and the largest market for U.S. goods and services exports in Africa. From 2017 through the past November, total U.S.-Egyptian bilateral trade grew by over 44% to $8.2 billion. U.S. goods exports to Egypt were, as Sharif mentioned, $5.2 billion, up 30% over the past 2 years. And U.S. imports from Egypt were up to $3 billion. That's a growth of 76% in those 2 years. U.S. food and agricultural exports to Egypt grew a whopping 145% from 2017 to 2018. Equally important, Egyptian agricultural exports to the US reached a record high 2 years in a row in 2018 and 2019. These figures only tell part of the story. When we think about commercial engagement, we should also think about the people-to-people relationships that lay the foundation for long-term commercial partnerships. Last year, we issued over 46,000 visas to Egyptians to visit the United States. That includes 1,000 student visas and 2,000 exchange visitor visas. These students and exchange visitors are building the relationships today that will form the bedrock of our partnership for years to come. And in the same way, the thousands of Americans who are visiting Egypt every year, many for tourism, but also for business, are returning to America with a clearer picture of the opportunities available here. The US government provides robust support for Egypt, both bilaterally and through multilateral institutions, having invested over $80 billion in Egypt in the 40 years of our strategic partnership. The US Agency for International Development has just celebrated its 40th year here, 40 years of partnering with the Egyptian people to improve economic growth and trade, healthcare, education, vocational training, water, sanitation, historical site preservation, and so much more. Our military and security assistance to Egypt also remains a lasting testament to Egypt's historic peace treaty with Israel 41 years ago, and totals over $50 billion in that time span. So with this strong foundation on both private business and governmental sides, there really isn't a sector in Egypt where we don't see opportunities for US companies to be more engaged, to make more investments, and to cultivate new business opportunities. Let's consider some of the sectors. Energy is one of the most promising, not just in Egypt, but across the whole Eastern Mediterranean. The recent announcement by Egypt and Israel of gas deliveries via the East Mediterranean gas pipeline is historic. And congratulations to Noble Energy for their part in this success story. ExxonMobil and Chevron are entering Egypt's dynamic upstream market, and Apache Corporation remains one of the largest investors in the country. Egypt also offers exciting opportunities for US companies in its growing renewables sector. And I want to tell just a short story of a visit I made last month to a vocational high school in Benban, where USAID is supporting a program that's training 14 to 18-year-olds to become solar energy technicians and be able to go out to work as soon as they graduate in the significant solar field out in Benban, which is the largest in the region. It's interesting to note, too, that more than half of the students at this school are women. We are investing in Egypt's youth, and I think those youth are so promising and so inspirational. I'd be happy to talk with some of you offline about some of the really inspiring stories that I heard the day I visited that school. In transport, it's easy to understand why Uber chose Egypt as the first country in the world in which to launch its new bus service, given this market of 100 million people needing to get somewhere every day. And General Electric and Caterpillar's Progress Rail are helping Egypt upgrade its rail system with new locomotives. Related to transport, of course, is aviation. As we see Egypt Air expand its routes in Egypt across the region and internationally, including its new nonstop service to Washington, D.C., we see opportunities for Boeing and other US companies to provide outstanding products and services. It was great to see Egypt Air add the new Boeing Dreamliner to its fleet last year, and I recently had the privilege of flying on one. It was spectacular, and we're looking forward to deepening this partnership in the years to come. US support for Egypt's defense and security needs is another key pillar of the strategic partnership that we're working with Egypt to ensure that there's a 21st century military capability here. We recognize, of course, that Egypt's security needs go beyond what our foreign military financing can provide. So we're working hard to ensure that US companies understand Egypt's needs and are ready to supply the highest quality products for the best price. Egypt should be buying US military goods because they are the best in the world. We firmly believe in and will always advocate for these products and services. The United States currently has over 500 military equipment transfer, repair, and training cases ongoing with Egypt. These range from aircraft to armored vehicles to medical assistance to maritime security vessels with a total value of over $20 billion. Last year, at Egypt's first ever International Defense Expo, the US had the largest number of exhibitors from any country, with 43 companies participating. We're planning for an even stronger turnout at the next Expo. In infrastructure, the commercial opportunities are vast and growing, as is Egypt's overall economy. With 14 smart cities being developed across Egypt, including the new administrative capital, these state-of-the-art developments are generating opportunities in power plant construction and operation, transport systems, water and wastewater plants, engineering and design, and major broadband installations. And speaking of broadband, information and communications technology, ICT, is another very promising area in this country, bursting with entrepreneurial spirit. The most recent ICT show attracted over 20 major US vendors who see great opportunities in helping Egypt build out a 21st century communications infrastructure. In the past 2 years, IBM, Microsoft, Uber, Cisco, and Honeywell have all expanded their footprint in Egypt, and Google's returned to Egypt based on positive growth prospects in the market. In healthcare, a growing population and a health sector modernization plan present both challenges and opportunities to the government and the private sector. US pharmaceutical companies and medical equipment providers have long played an important role here, partnering with the Egyptian government to keep Egyptian citizens healthy. It was a US-Egypt joint venture that mobilized the public and private sector with the support of the World Bank to test 70 million Egyptians in 7 years and wipe out hepatitis C in Egypt. As we see opportunities for US companies in Egypt's plans to digitize medical records and upgrade its national health insurance program, we'll be looking for ways to help US companies find their way to contribute. And textiles continue to present important commercial prospects for Egyptian companies to export to the US, which translates into opportunities for US importers and clothing manufacturers. The Qualified Industrial Zone, which allows for duty-free imports to the US of Egyptian products with 10.5% Israeli input, continues to foster expansion of Egypt's textile exports to the US, which are now worth nearly $1 billion each year and support tens of thousands of jobs in both our countries. And I want to underscore that the QIZ is not limited to textiles, and that we very much want to encourage Egyptian companies to look for other opportunities to expand the use of this facility to other products. I also want to mention our Generalized System of Preferences program, GSP, through which Egyptian companies that manufacture any one of over 3,500 different products can export them duty-free to the United States. Egyptian companies currently only export about $90 million to the US under this program, so there's significant room to expand, and we want to help you do so. And of course, we can't overlook agriculture, which accounted for nearly 60% of US-Egypt bilateral trade last year. From Cargill and ADM's joint venture soybean crushing facility that I recently visited in Alexandria, to Pepsi's investment in potato production here in Egypt, US companies are well aware of the many opportunities across Egypt's agricultural sector, including food and beverages, feedstock, and so much more. Many US agribusiness associations are already active in Egypt and work closely with local firms on best practices. Turning to entrepreneurship, the spirit of innovation is alive and well across Egypt's economy. From the Egyptian restaurant Zuba, which recently opened a location in New York City, to the Elves Concierge app, which has also expanded into the US. Egypt has many startups on their way to becoming household names in the region and beyond. The Egyptian government, the central bank, the private sector, and multilateral institutions have all joined forces to increase the momentum of Egypt's vibrant entrepreneurial sector. And over the past 3 years, the US has connected over 10,000 young entrepreneurs to financing and business development and mentoring services. We helped establish 14 business incubators and 14 business development centers that have already helped over 800 small companies improve their business models and management skills. USAID is working with universities and technical high schools to promote entrepreneurship programs that will help the next generation of entrepreneurs enter the market. The tourism sector also presents excellent opportunities, with tourism numbers rising back to pre-2011 levels, including an increasing number of Americans, and with more tourists from around the world seeking a deeper, more meaningful experience in their visits to Egypt. There are new opportunities in hotel construction and transportation, among other things. This is a sector that we at the Embassy plan to explore further in the months ahead. And finally, space. Outer space, the final frontier for you Star Trek fans. Upon my arrival, I learned of an opportunity with Nilesat to launch their newest satellite into space, and my team and I made a strong case for an American company to do so. We were very pleased to learn last week that Nilesat had chosen California's SpaceX to launch their satellite. We expect to see a lot more U.S. interest in Egypt as space-related opportunities arise. To help translate prospects across all these sectors into real investments, I'm listening closely to what U.S. companies tell us about what is needed. You tell us you want to see more reliable infrastructure and faster, more efficient customs and trade facilitation systems. Egypt will need both to realize its potential as a regional trade and investment hub. As Egypt builds or upgrades its airports, roads, railways, and seaports, U.S. companies are participating with superior products and services, with financing facilitated by the Development Finance Corporation and the Exim Bank, feasibility studies backed by the U.S. Trade and Development Agency, and advocacy from senior government officials. And on customs, we believe we are close to signing a mutual assistance agreement, culminating years of effort. This will provide technical assistance, expertise, and possibly even funding to enhance customs clearance procedures. Additionally, USAID and our Commerce Department's Commercial Law and Development Program are working with Egypt to train custom officers and on international agreements dealing with customs valuations. Investors are looking for clearer, more efficient regulatory structures and a streamlined and customer-focused bureaucracy, as well as stronger protection for intellectual property rights. So we're working with the Egyptian National Competitiveness Council to reduce regulatory red tape, and with chambers of commerce, streamlining business regulations and facilitating business licensing through one-stop shops with a particular focus on industrial licensing. On intellectual property, the embassy is supporting the Egyptian government's efforts to improve its IPR protection, including through the training of judges and border officials. Businesses also tell us that they seek and are willing to partner with to develop a more educated workforce with the technical skills needed to establish 21st century factories and production lines. Through expanding Career Center programs, we're connecting public universities with business leaders in order to improve the readiness of graduates to fill existing jobs. And since 2015, the U.S.-Egypt Higher Education Initiative has provided scholarships to hundreds of talented women and men from communities throughout Egypt to study at premier Egyptian and American universities in fields crucial for sustained economic growth and development. Business leaders also tell us that they're looking for a more open society that encourages innovation and entrepreneurship across all sectors. We've established incubators in universities across Egypt to train young Egyptians and to build their entrepreneurial skills in order to launch their business ideas. And our American Cultural Center at the U.S. Embassy is full every day, with hundreds of young Egyptians receiving training and certification on the latest technologies, including virtual reality design, 3D printing, and more. Besides these specific efforts, we have many other tools at our disposal to help you, and a great team at the embassy standing by to do so. Let me run through with you some of the tools that we're working with. First, you may have heard of Select USA. It's a U.S. government-wide program led by the Department of Commerce that's facilitated more than $64 billion in investment. And last year, for the first time, we had an official Egyptian delegation travel to the annual Select USA Investment Summit in Washington, D.C., to look for opportunities for Egyptian companies to increase their investments in the U.S. While many of you in this room are mainly focused on increasing U.S. investment here in Egypt, we don't want to overlook the other important side of this two-way equation, nor the opportunities to network, to meet the competition, or to explore joint venture possibilities. I plan to accompany the next Egyptian delegation to Washington for this year's summit, June 1st through 4th, so save the dates. I hope to see many of you there. Our toolkit also includes the Egyptian American Enterprise Fund. This U.S. government-funded private entity aims to stimulate growth in Egypt, especially in the private sector, by providing small and medium-sized enterprises with access to investment capital and loans, modern technologies, and best business practices. Its $300 million fund targets investments that will contribute to long-term sustainable economic development and has so far made around $185 million in investments in a number of promising Egyptian companies. Through our Foreign Commercial Service, we can also help with trade development, business counseling, and commercial advocacy. We have a number of large promising projects and procurements for which we're currently advocating, and which we hope to have some exciting news about in the very near future. Overall, we're upping our game on commercial advocacy, including through US TDA, the DFC, and the Exim Bank, and through my personal engagement. Every day, our commercial, economic, and agricultural teams at the embassy are advocating with the government of Egypt to remove or reduce specific barriers and to improve the overall business environment. Now, I want to circle back to where I started. We're truly in this together, and I'm personally committed to nourishing and strengthening the Embassy-AmCham partnership and embassy support for U.S. business here in Egypt, though in a sense, that's the same thing. After 2.5 years without an American ambassador here, I'm here now, and I want to make sure we don't miss any opportunities that my presence can leverage. And I'd love to get out and see your offices, your plants, and your projects. I want you to know America means business in Egypt. And again, thank you, Sharif and Sylvia and your team, AmCham board, and all of you for the warm welcome today. We've got a lot of great work and important work to do together. I look forward to helping you succeed. So thank you for your support, for your friendship, and for your attention.